Hey there, Twisters. Welcome to my Eastern Conference Final preview between the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning here in the 2022 Stanley Cup Playoffs. So the way that I'll structure my preview, first of all, we'll take a look at each team, a playoff profile, if you will, how they've performed so far in the postseason. Then we'll look at the regular season series between these two teams. I'll tell you 5 things to watch out for in this series. And then lastly, I'll give my final outlook and my prediction. Now, I want to know your prediction and why down in the comments below, so be sure to sound off down there. But according to our poll, it looks like a pretty good majority of you think that the Tampa Bay Lightning will be going back to the Stanley Cup Final for a third consecutive time. I want to thank everybody who's recently joined the channel. It's fantastic seeing so many new hockey fans show up here. We're going to continue our live reactions throughout the conference finals and also the Stanley Cup Final. So if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you know when I'm going live during the playoffs. All right, we'll start with a playoff profile here for each team. We're going to start with the Rangers. They have home ice in this series. So they're coming off a 4-3 series victory against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They trailed 3-1 in that series and battled back. And then most recently, 4-3 against the Carolina Hurricanes, where they came back from down 2-0. In the Big Four stats so far among all 16 playoff teams, the Rangers are tied for 4th in goals for average at 3.43. They are 5th best in goals against average at 3. Second ranked power play at 32.5%. And the penalty kill right now clicking at 80.5%. That is 8th. The leader in points is Mika Zibanejad. 14 games played, 7 goals, 12 assists for 19 points, and a neutral rating. The defenseman leader in points is Adam Fox, just behind Mika here. 14 games, 5 goals, 13 assists for 18 points, and a +2 rating. My surprise so far for the Rangers, I selected Filip Chytil. He has 5 goals and an assist for 6 points, a -3 rating, but he is kind of heating up. He has 3 goals over the past 2 games, and those came in elimination situations. And as for goaltending, Igor Shesterkin so far, 14 games, 2.68 goals against average, a .928 save percentage, but no shutouts so far. 3 observations recently from the New York Rangers. First of all, the power play is sizzling. As I said earlier, ranked 2nd among playoff teams at 32.5%. But remember, those came against the #1 penalty killer in the regular season in Carolina and the #3 team in that category, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Zibanejad is leading with 4 power play goals in that group, but 6 others have struck on the man advantage. So certainly they have some weapons out there. And it's really good that they're able to cash in because they haven't drawn so many penalties per game so far, just 3.42 per game. Second of all, the defensive commitment from this team has been very strong. This is more from the eye test, but I did take a look at the advanced stats out there, the possession numbers 5-on-5 for guys like Ryan Lindgren, but really Jacob Trouba and Keandre Miller, that pairing has worked out completely according to plan. So they've been strong there. They've been physical defensemen. They've been able to keep some of those pucks away from Shesterkin when he's given up a rebound. They clear that out of the net. So they look good in that regard. But you also have some contributions from the forwards as well, guys, like Barclay Goodrow, having him back. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but he's an excellent defensive specialist, especially in the postseason. Andrew Kopp is out there doing his thing, as is Tyler Mott. So a good mix of defensive skill sets up and down the lineup for the Rangers. And then lastly, this is kind of like what Gallant did with the Golden Knights back in 2018, but the Rangers are sort of rolling those 4 lines. And I think that kind of plays to their advantage, so then that way they can find multiple ways to beat a tough team out there. So you think of the way that they're starting games with their sort of identity line, right? Ryan Reeves, Barclay Goodrow, and Tyler Mott. And then you have the kid line of Chytil, Lafreniere, and Kakko. Kakko not as much, but the other two really getting some opportunities in transition for the Rangers. So I'm getting kind of the sense that they've really formed the chemistry that they want in those 4 lines. And so Gallant, he's going to see how he can attack Tampa or how he can contain them with the skill sets that are throughout the forward groups. Now we'll talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, they won in the first round against the Leafs in 7 games, battling back from down 3-2. And they also swept the Florida Panthers in the second round, a very convincing performance. In the Big Four stats, they are 7th in goals for at 3.27 per game. Goals against average, this is really impressive, 2.45. That is 2nd among playoff teams. And also consider they played Toronto and also Florida, so very high-powered offenses. Power play percentage, 22.9%. That seems to be only getting better, though, through the course of the playoffs. That's ranked 8th. Penalty kill, very strong as well. 87.8%. That's 3rd. They had to kill off the Maple Leafs and Panthers power plays, which are pretty good. The leader in points is Nikita Kucherov, 11 games, 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points. Defenseman points leader is Victor Hedman, no surprise there. 2 goals and 8 assists for 10 points. The surprise so far, even though for a lot of Lightning fans it won't be that surprising, but Ross Colton already has 5 goals and 3 assists for 8 points. All 3 of these guys have a neutral rating, just FYI. And then in goal, Vasilevskiy, 11 games, 2.22 goals against average, 932 save percentage, and he did have a shutout in Game 4 against Florida. 3 observations for the Lightning. First of all, it's the next man up mentality. Corey Perry certainly exemplifies this. He replaced Braden Point when Point was injured in Game 7 against the Maple Leafs, and so far he's been very good. He has 5 goals and an assist. Yes, a -2 rating, but he has 3 power play tallies, which is really important considering that's where Braden Point really does shine in the postseason. And against the Panthers, he scored 3 goals and had an assist. So Corey Perry literally had the same amount of goals as the whole Florida Panthers team. That tells you just what he's capable of doing. He knows how to get to the net and be an agitator out there. And Tampa, they're rolling with 11 forwards out there. It doesn't matter who they need to pair with whom. They find a way to get things done. For point number 2, I want to focus on the Tampa Bay Lightning blueprint. So really, it's strong play in their own end. It's not surrendering that high quality of chances out there. They did a remarkable job against the Panthers in that respect. And the goaltending of Vasilevskiy has really emerged later in the postseason here. And it's not just the defensemen, although I could talk about, McDonough and Chernak and Hedman and whatnot. But you've got Killorn and Cirelli really committing into the zone quite a bit. And also even Steven Stamkos has blocked shots and late hits at times too. So everybody knows that they have some sort of contribution to make in their own end. And Vasilevskiy, from what I recall here, in his last 7 series clinching games, has 6 shutouts. So that is absolutely absurd. And for observation number 3, so what if they lost that great line of Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow, and Yanni Gourde in the offseason? They've really filled in quite well with some of the guys they've brought in at the trade deadline. So I look at the line of Brandon Hagel, Ross Colton, and Nick Paul and Hagel being the trade deadline acquisitions, and Ross Colton just picking up where he left off, scoring big goals in the playoffs. Hagel has been excellent. Paul has come up big at times as well. He had 2 goals in Game 7. And these guys have gotten a lot of offensive chances so far in the playoffs and have cashed in fairly well, while guys like Cirelli and Killorn have had to defensively commit more. Now let's look at the history between these two teams. We'll especially focus on the regular season series. So the Rangers were actually 3-0 against the Lightning. They had 1 win in a shootout. Overall, the Rangers played great against playoff teams in the regular season. They outscored the Lightning 9-4 in regulation over the course of those 3 games. They last met on March 19th. The Rangers won that game 2-1. Notable performers in the season series: Zibanejad had 4 goals for the Rangers. Goodrow had 2 goals and an assist. Fox and Kreider each had 3 assists. And Igor Shesterkin in net, 1.30 goals against average, 958 save percentage, and a shutout that was in the second game as he started all 3 games in that series. As for the Lightning, Stamkos just a goal and an assist. Hedman, Killorn, and Palat each had 2 assists. And Vasilevskiy played 2 games with a 3.03 goals against average and an 875 save percentage. Now, those games were a lot earlier in the year, so do take this with a grain of salt, especially with the way that Vasi is playing, but nonetheless wanted to fill you in there. They've met only 1 time in the playoffs, the Lightning and Rangers have. That came in 2015, where Tampa beat New York in the Eastern Conference Final in 7 games. Game 7 was a 2-0 victory, certainly that Tampa Bay style of game, just like Game 4 against Florida. Those goals came from current Lightning players Alex Killorn and Andrei Palat. Now let's talk about 5 things to watch out for in this series. Certainly with the Western Conference Final, we've got McDavid versus McKinnon, and things could be a lot more high-scoring and open-ended there. Here, it's the exact opposite. It's going to be a goaltending battle between, of course, 2 fantastic netminders in Andrei Vasilevskiy and also Igor Shesterkin. Now, both goaltenders didn't start the playoffs all that sharp. Yeah, Shesterkin really good in games 1 and 2. He faltered a little bit, but once the Rangers started facing elimination and the games that followed that, so his last 10 games, he's allowed 21 goals, 939 save percentage, very in line with how he performed in the regular season, and of course, he's favored to win the Vezina Trophy. Whereas with Andrei Vasilevskiy, in his last 6 games, He's got a 968 save percentage. He's only allowed 7 goals against, and he had that game 4 shutout. But it's really not just making the saves, not making those initial saves out there. I think rebound control is going to be important here. They're going to have traffic in front of their faces. We'll talk about that in just a moment here. So the defensemen need to do a good job of clearing out pucks and limiting play behind the net as well. For point number 2, I want to focus on the down-low battle. I think that both teams have a couple of really good net front players, and those aren't the kinds of goals that Shesterkin and Vasilevskiy have been letting in so much in the playoffs. I think they've been very sharp, partially because they've had good defensemen in front of them clearing out the traffic and clearing out pucks when they get near the crease. So look for Alex Killorn out there, especially on the power play, right? So he hasn't scored a goal so far in the playoffs. He had one in Game 4 that got overturned for being the puck out of play there, but he's been a monster in the postseason before. He had 8 goals in 19 games last year, but of course he's going up against Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider, Jacob Trouba, Justin Braun. Those guys are big defensemen out there. So if it's not going to be him, maybe it's Corey Perry also agitating as well, especially while Braden Point, we wait for him to get back into the lineup. On the other side of things, look at Chris Kreider for the Rangers, of course. He has 6 goals and 3 assists in 14 games, so he's producing, but maybe not at the same clip that maybe we would have expected from him. But nonetheless, he has 5 goals and an assist in 5 elimination games, so he has come up big in those types of situations, and certainly he did that last night against the Hurricanes. So it's going to be up to him to outmuscle guys like Victor Hedman, Cal Foote, Eric Chernak, and Ryan McDonough. So he's got a big assignment ahead of him, and I think that his play in net, or in front of the net, could be a potential difference maker, especially with how good the power play has been clicking for the Rangers. For number 3, it's the sweater swap. So we're looking at players who used to play for the opposing team. So we'll start with the Rangers. It's Barclay Goodrow, 2 goals and an assist against Tampa this year, and he was absolutely beastly in the Lightning's 2 Stanley Cup Final runs the past 2 years. In 5-on-5 play in the postseason, Vasilevskiy had a 961 save percentage with Barclay Goodrow on the ice. He blocked 68 shots in just 18 games. That is absolutely ludicrous, especially for a forward. He can win you some key faceoffs in the defensive zone, and he does score clutch goals. I've touched on that just once or twice in my time on this channel. On the other side of things, you have the Lightning's Ryan McDonough, longtime Ranger and also former captain there. His assignment going to be disrupting the cycle game for Panarin and Zibanejad, especially behind the net there. I already talked about how Kreider's going to want to set up position to get in Shesterkin's face. He's been kind of quiet in the playoffs from my eye test, but that's a good thing because he is, of course, there to shut down some of the top players out there. 11 games, 1 goal, 3 assists. He has a +5 rating. He led plus-minus last year in the playoffs, I believe. 22-33 of time on ice per game. Already has 33 shots in 11 games, so he's absolutely committing himself very well in his own end. He can also lay some hits. He's got 15 so far. Vasilevskiy in 5-on-5 situations has a 931 save percentage with McDonough on the ice. And I think that Tampa had to rotate some of their defensive pairings with Point being absent. They've been rolling with 7 defensemen recently. But even so, looking at the defensive pairings who are still around in the playoffs, the expected goals against per 60 minutes for the pairing of McDonough and Bogosian is actually the second highest rated in the playoffs. So only Bowen Byram and Eric Johnson have performed better in that respect. For point number 4, I want to focus on how these two teams have played opportunistic hockey so far. So not dominating puck possession, just really clean in their own end in terms of not surrendering high quality chances and frustrating the opposition in that respect when they can't get the puck past the goaltender. As a result, they sometimes get those good transitional opportunities out there. So I think of the kid line for the Rangers. They've gotten a few chances out there. The third line for the Lightning as well. So really expect some of those momentum turning moments on that sort of play. It really happened last night in Game 7 against the Hurricanes and Game 6 for that matter as well for the Rangers. But I know that the Lightning are more than capable of doing that as well. But the thing is that the Lightning have been actually drawing 5.62 per game, committing 4.69 per game, but again, their penalty kill, 87.8% so far. Whereas the Rangers, as good as their power play has been, they've only been drawing 3.42 per game and committing 3.56. So what gives in this series? How physical does it get? How chippy does it get? And that could also be producing some opportunities for a team that might not dominate puck possession 5-on-5. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say there. And for point number 5, we've got Pat Maroon, we've got Ryan Reeves. Do these guys clash? What can we expect in terms of a chippy series? You've got Jacob Trouba laying some huge hits, yes. And you've also got, Corey Perry getting under opponent's skin as well. So do things really turn up in the conference finals? The chippy play in the playoffs has been a little bit underwhelming in my personal opinion. But I think there are definitely some guys out there, some big physical players who will assert themselves in this series. And so maybe it will become a war of attrition. And yeah, that might favor the Rangers right now, given how Point has been banged up, and Brandon Hagel, he's been a little bit banged up as well. Nonetheless, the Rangers seem to be pretty healthy right now. So let's see if that could be any sort of momentum shifter over time in this series. Well, anyway, we get to my final outlook and my prediction here. I was really impressed with how the Rangers not only clawed back against the Penguins, but how they played against the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that's very defensively committed and disciplined out there. But the Rangers got under their skin, and they were an opportunistic team that cashed in when they had those chances, especially on the power play. So I don't think this is going to be an easy series for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But that said, they have just been impenetrable on defense so far. And they've done this against the Maple Leafs. They've done this against the Florida Panthers. And Vasilevskiy is just looking like he's on another planet right now. Shesterkin has been terrific as well. These games could be 2-1, 3-2 games. 3 or 4 of them could go to overtime. But as good as the Rangers have looked, and originally, if the Lightning had played the Hurricanes, I would have said Lightning probably win this in 5 games, honestly. But I don't think that's going to happen against the Rangers. I think they match up better against the Lightning. They've shown that in the regular season as well, that they can outperform Tampa when they have most of their strongest players out there on the ice. But again, I just can't shy away from picking the champs in this one. I think it's really close. I had the other series going Avs in 6. I'm going to pick the Lightning to win this. It's going 7 games, though. It's going the distance. Anyway, guys, I want to know your thoughts on this series down in the comments below, so sound off down there. Keep it respectful, please, and stick around. Again, we're having the live streams every day. There's a playoff game, so I'll be back at it tonight, and I'll be back at it for Game 1 of this conference final. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. If you want to follow me on social media, see the video description down below, or if you want to donate to the channel, there are certainly ways of doing that, even the thanks option here. Also, leave a thumbs up, guys. That does help others like you discover this content. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, I'm Nick, and I'll catch you Twisters later.